Today we're going to go over how NBA legends performed in their final games. Now, it's only right that we started off with Michael Jordan, as he's widely regarded as the best basketball player of all time. Currently, LeBron is the only player giving him a run for his money. So as a result of the dominant career that Jordan had put together, by the time he played his final game, he was more than deserving of a proper send-off. The entire league held the highest respect for Jordan, as he had dominated each and every franchise that he didn't play for during his peak. While he made almost all of his career-defining moments as a member of the Chicago Bulls, he would finish his career with the Washington Wizards. In an interview with the owner of the team, Ted Leonsis, he recalled a conversation that he had with Jordan saying, "I said, tell me what you're interested in." He said, "I want to win more championships. I want equity. I want to run the basketball operations." Jordan would get equity in the team, being a partial owner before having to sell his stake in the organization after he joined the roster as a player. In his final game in the NBA, Jordan and the Wizards would face off against the Philadelphia 76ers on April 16, 2003. MJ would finish the game with 15 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, while shooting 40% from the field. To make things worse for Jordan, the Wizards would also lose the game by a final score of 107-87. Despite Jordan being far from the elite scorer that he was in his prime, obviously, his impact on the game and the respect that he had earned during his illustrious career was put on full display. With 1:44 left in the game, the 76ers guard Eric Snow fouled MJ, so he would have a chance to finish his career with 2 free throws. When asked about the foul, Snow was quoted as saying, "Coach told me to foul him, get him to the line to get some points, and get him out of there." Despite the game taking place in Philadelphia, a city that is well known for their fans not showing the most grace, Jordan would still receive a standing ovation from the crowd after sinking both free throws. After the game, Jordan was quoted as saying, "The Philly people did a great job. They gave me the biggest inspiration in a sense. Obviously, they wanted to see me make a couple of baskets and then come off. That was very, very respectful, and I had a good time. Now I guess it hits me that I'm not going to be in a uniform anymore. That's not a terrible feeling. It's something that I've come to grips with, and it's time. This is the final retirement." Jordan would retire as one of the most highly decorated players in the history of the game. He won the 1984-85 Rookie of the Year award, made 14 All-Star appearances, led the league in scoring 10 times, led the NBA in steals 3 times, won 6 NBA titles, took home 6 Finals MVPs, made 11 All-NBA appearances, 9 All-Defensive Team appearances, won 5 MVP awards, 1 Defensive Player of the Year award, and was a first ballot Hall of Famer, being inducted in 2009. Up next is the player that came the closest to replicating Michael Jordan in almost every way possible. Rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. He is likely the closest thing that NBA fans will ever see to Michael Jordan. It was almost eerie watching side-by-side comparisons of the players doing almost the same move frame by frame. Despite his game being heavily inspired by Jordan, Bryant was still able to make it out of MJ's shadow and make a name for himself as the second best shooting guard of all time. Bryant's mentality and dedication to the game led to him being one of the top players to ever suit up in an NBA game. He bounced back from countless injuries that would leave many players as a shell of what they once were. And despite all the wear and tear on his body, by his final game in the NBA, Bryant put on the best final performance in the history of the game. Throughout the course of his final season, Bryant earned the privilege of getting the closest thing to a send-off tour that the league has ever seen. His Los Angeles Lakers were struggling to find the talent to surround him with, and it was clear that they did not have a shot of making the postseason. As a result of this allowed Bryant to have the offense run through him and put on a show in his final season in the league. This came to a head in his final game of his career, and it was in the Staples Center. Shortly before the game began, their opponents, the Utah Jazz, were eliminated from playoff contention. This allowed both sides to ensure that Bryant would receive the proper send-off that he had earned through his 20-year run of dominance in the NBA. Heading into the game, Bryant's friend Shaquille O'Neal challenged him to cap off his career with a 50-point outburst. But with Kobe being the elite competitor that he was, he would eclipse the 50-point mark and keep going. He would finish the game with 60 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, while shooting 44% from the field and 28.6% from 3. The Lakers would win this game by a final score of 101-96. After the game, O'Neal spoke on the challenge that he issued Kobe prior to the game, saying, "I challenged him to get 50, and the mother effer got 60. This 60-point outburst would give Bryant the record for the most points in a final game of a player's career, smashing John Havlicek's previous record at 29 points. Bryant would retire making 18 appearances in the All-Star game, leading the league in scoring twice, winning 5 NBA titles, taking home 2 Finals MVPs, making 15 appearances on the All-NBA team, 12 appearances on the All-Defensive team, and winning 1 MVP before being inducted to the Hall of Fame in 2021. The next player on our list was one of Kobe's biggest rivals in the Western Conference through the late 2000s and early 2010s. Dirk Nowitzki retired as one of the greatest power forwards to ever play the game of basketball. He spent all 21 of his years in the NBA as a member of the Dallas Mavericks. When his run with the team finally came to an end, it was a very sad moment for the franchise. Dirk's final game would come on April 10th, 2019 against the San Antonio Spurs. Unlike the Utah Jazz in Kobe Bryant's final game, the Spurs were still in playoff contention in the final game of the year, and as a result of this, they could not afford to give Dirk the final send-off that he deserved. Despite this, he still ended the contest with a very respectable 20 points, 10 rebounds, and 1 assist, while shooting 38.1% from the field and 33.3% from 3. While this wasn't the most efficient scoring night of his Hall of Fame caliber career, this was still a very impressive showing from a 40-year-old player. After the game, Nowitzki got high praise from arguably the greatest head coach of all time, Greg Popovich. After the game, Coach Pop was quoted as saying, "Everybody, players, fans, coaches, and staff got to witness history watching him play his last game. He played a fine game, which was great. It's not surprising. He was having a lot of fun tonight. I was really happy for him." Despite losing the game by a final score of 105-94, Dirk was still in very high spirits after the game. Despite Nowitzki playing for the opposing team, San Antonio still played a 1 minute and 30-second tribute video going over some of the best moments of Dirk's incredible 21-year career. When asked about that moment, he said, "The first 20-30 seconds, I was kind of holding it. I was like, that's sweet. And then it just kind of all came out. I'm not sure why. Not only did they show highlights from my career, but they showed highlights from me beating up on the Spurs, which was even more incredible." Nowitzki retired as one of the best to ever play his position and one of the most widely loved players in the history of the game. At the time of his retirement, he made 12 All-NBA teams, 14 All-Star appearances, 1 MVP, and led the Mavericks to arguably the most impressive NBA Finals win of all time over the Miami Heat, where Dirk would be named as the Finals MVP. Up next is another player that would retire as the most beloved player in the history of the team that he retired for. There are very few players that were able to connect with the city as well as Dwayne Wade did with Miami. He was so beloved by Heat fans and the city as a whole that he would even have a county named after him. While the name would eventually be changed back, for a short time, Miami-Dade County Commissioners would unanimously pass the notion to change the name of their county to Miami-Wade County. Wade would spend 15 of his 16 seasons in the league playing at least 21 games with the organization. Despite the tight bond that he held with the city of Miami, Wade would play his final game in the NBA on the road against the Brooklyn Nets. He would finish the contest with an incredible 25-point, 11 rebound, and 10 assist triple-double performance. While he did this on a rather inefficient shooting night, going 35.7% from the field and 23.1% from 3, this was still an amazing showing from the then 37-year-old Wade. After the game, he was quoted as saying, "My thoughts are all over the place. As I sit here, I think about the moment that my agent came to the table in New York in 2003 and told me the Heat were about to pick me at 5. It was a numb feeling, similar to what I'm feeling right now. I heard the ovation, I heard the love, I appreciated it then, and I more than appreciate it now. I'm sitting here the most thankful person in this state to play my last game on this floor. I'm not crying on the outside right now because I'm so joyous. This is going to take some getting used to. Tuning in, watching this organization, watching my teammates play out here, and I'm not there. It's definitely going to take me a while to get used to. Wade would finish his career widely regarded as one of the best shooting guards to ever play the game. He would retire with 13 All-Star appearances, 3 NBA titles, 1 Finals MVP, 8 All-NBA appearances, 3 appearances on the All-Defensive team, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2023. What if I told you that the next player on our list would play the final game of his career in a Game 7 of the NBA Finals? It cannot be argued that Bill Russell is the greatest winner in the history of the NBA. While he didn't finish his career with a spotless record in the NBA Finals like Michael Jordan's 6-0 run, Russell's 11 NBA titles is a record that will never come close to being touched again. The final game of his career would come in a very fitting matchup in the NBA Finals against the Los Angeles Lakers. Throughout his career, Russell had a handful of run-ins with the Lakers in the finals, and he would retire with a record of 6-0 against the team in the finals, averaging an incredible 17.6 points and 24.7 rebounds per game in the 42 finals games of the two franchises played against each other. Russell's final game as a player in the NBA would come in Game 7 of the 1969 NBA Finals, with the series being tied 3-3 and the Lakers having the home court advantage. The odds were stacked up against Boston, but despite this, Russell would still do his best to put up a respectable performance. Although shooting not the greatest, 28.6% from the field, he ended with 6 points, 21 rebounds, and 6 assists in the closeout game. The Celtics would narrowly escape in a 108-106 win, and Russell would call it a career with an 11th NBA title under his belt. After the game, he kept things very simple and was quoted as saying, "We played well together." While this was not the most profound statement from one of the greatest big men of all time, nothing more true could have been said about him and the Celtics core around this time. Russell and his teammates from the Celtics hold the top 6 spots in terms of players with the most championships. Despite the Lakers having incredible rosters around this time, they were not able to put things together and win when it mattered like Boston did. While Russell's name doesn't come up as frequently as it should in discussions of all-time greats, the sacrifices he made to win will never go unnoticed, as another player probably will never come close to winning the amount of titles as him. At the time of his retirement, Russell was named to 12 All-Star teams, 11 All-NBA teams, 1 All-Defensive team, won 5 MVP awards, led the league in rebounding 4 times, took home 11 titles, and was inducted into the Hall of Fame twice, once as a player in 1975 and once as a coach in 2021. The next NBA legend's last game came from one of the greatest shooters of all time. Reggie Miller was arguably the greatest shooter of his generation and one of the top marksmen that the game has ever seen. His final game came in the second round of the playoffs against the Detroit Pistons on May 19, 2005. This would come in the same season that the notorious Malice at the Palace incident would take place. Miller would have an outstanding performance in his final game in the NBA, finishing the contest with 27 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists, while shooting a remarkable 68.8% from the field and 50% from 3. If it had not been for the suspensions from the Malice at the Palace leaving Miller without much of a supporting cast, the Indiana Pacers could have ended up winning the series, but they would lose in Game 6 by a final score of 88-79. Despite the game not going his way, Miller would still get a standing ovation from the same hometown fans that his teammates were in an all-out brawl with in the regular season. This speaks volumes to the caliber of player that Miller was and the respect that he earned throughout his time in the league. He would retire with 5 All-Star appearances, 3 All-NBA appearances, and was inducted in the Hall of Fame in 2012 after spending his entire 18-year career with the Pacers. Now, I know we only covered a couple NBA legends' last games in this video, but if you guys want to see more, let me know down in the comment section below of which players you'd like to see in the next episode. And also, if you enjoyed the content, drop a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.